Welcome to Detour Sounds podcast. I'm Matt Harness here with
Ryan Rambo.
Ryan Rambo. Ryan Rambo. I'm in Cleveland. Ryan is in
I'm
the
in
Chicago
Bolingbrook.
area,
Yep.
and we are here to share our love of music. Uh, last episode we talked about bands that were very important to us, why they're important to us. Uh, the mission of the podcast is, uh, to not only share our love of music, but how we found music, how you can find music. Nowadays there's so many ways you can do it, and that's what we're going to talk about this episode. Uh, Before we get into it, we have a YouTube channel. Please visit, like us, subscribe to us. It's going to help, you know, uh, promote us and get the message out. Uh, and we're doing this because they're with a lot of the crazy, insane shit that's going on in our country and the world. There are a lot of great things happening, and I wanted to share this thing that I just learned. So this morning, some friends of ours in just the town next door uh, told us about two cats that got out of the house, and they're looking for them. I have a kid. You have two dogs, so we both appreciate how important. I mean, the pets they're our family,
Oh yeah.
and so they kind of put out this word, and hey, can you be on the lookout for Scoot and Mabel? And so this group thread that I'm on, uh, like they just got activated, and they're walking around the neighborhood. And this, I think, started. I think I got the first one about 9 a.m. this morning. So here, where I am, it's 7. So 10 hours later, they found Scoot and Mabel,
Good shit.
and I'm like, it's like just so heartwarming. Like the power of like community and people just uh, kind of loving each other and uh, helping each other out. Yeah, I mean, now I got to visit at some point. Visit Scoot and Mabel, and be like, what was going on? Why did you, yeah, have to
Yes.
escape and put all this drama on a Sunday? But so what this episode we're going to talk about is how we discover music, whether it's from somebody in our life. Rambo has talked about the influence his dad had on him
Hmm.
growing up, whether it's a an older brother or sister. In my case, it was a neighbor, uh, older brother who turned me on to some stuff. Uh, Also, where are some of the places you can go to discover some new music that again is off kind of the main road? So that's what we're going to discuss in this episode. Hope you enjoy it.
All
So
right.
Rambo, let's start with you talked about your dad and how sort of his influence on you at a young age. He plays music. He's, if I'm correct, been in bands. You're now in a band,
Yep.
but as a young kid, he's introducing you to some music that you might not have otherwise found. Who are some other people in your life that turned you on to some music?
Yeah, so for a second going back, like my dad did give me that basically like foundation to build on with all like classic rock, kind of like Tom Petty, The Who, AC/DC, all that kind of stuff, and then kind of things that were kind of new and as far as alternative rock, like we talked about Green Day, also Lit, Blink 182, like kind of like the 90s, 2000s stuff. So he kind of did that groundwork for me. And then I was able to, I knew I liked really badass guitars, loud drums, stuff like that, catchy hooks and lines and vocal melodies. But also, you, just your friends in general, like, found out about Green Day by my friends in fifth grade. And as we go on, my friend Alex, my childhood friend, he was getting really into the Rock on Tours back in the day, and that's a Jack White project. So through that, you learn about Jack White, Brandon Benson, and it kind of opened another avenue or a detour as we're talking about. But yeah, friends, girlfriend or partner, I wrote down. My at the time girlfriend, now currently wife, Abby, she sent me like a playlist of like all the stuff she was listening to, and it just I hadn't heard most of it. I was like more of like a I would say kind of closed minded. I was like, I like Blink 182, Green Day, the Growlers, and that's it. Like right now, that's what I'm like obsessively listening over. And she was like, no, here's like some other bands like Krungbin is like a Texas band, but they were inspired by like Thai funk stuff. So that naturally creates a really interesting type of music. So yeah, just listening to those people really close to you, that can really unlock some really cool avenues you can explore as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I no, I think that's great. The band I'm gonna mispronounce their name, but that you mentioned, the Thai Funk, you shared them
Krungbin,
with me. So
yes, yes,
yeah, they're awesome. They're great. And again, like that's a kind of a band that you're not going to necessarily find on the radio if you're, in the car on the FM dial. That's something that, you know, you need I guess I kind of call like a musical Sherpa guide to kind of, you know, steer you on, a path. And that's awesome.
mm-hmm.
For me, it so I had my next door neighbor, Keith Pearlstein. I'll name drop him. He so we were I think he was a year younger than me, and I would often go over to his house, play video games. Growing up, he had his older brother. I'm going to say it was about 4 or 5 years older than us. So by the time we were getting into high school, he's in college, and he went to college at University of Texas in Austin, which is a huge music town. And he would come back home, for the holiday breaks or in the summer, and he would have you know these bands. He's like, oh, you got to check out these bands we've been listening to in college, because you're in college now. You have a little bit, your world is kind of expanded, and he's
Mm-hmm.
getting uh, recommendations from friends that he's met there. And then he comes back. There was a band I remember that is from Texas. It's called Soul Hat. It's like kind of a bluesy, uh, just Texas rock and roll band. And I mean, again, like I probably never would have heard of them, and I don't even know if they're still around. But I don't know if this is their first album, or whatever. I mean, it's awesome. Like I still listen to it to this day. Also, I remember one time we're sitting around his house. His uh, parents are gone, and he puts on this music, and it's just so weird. And it turns out it's Frank Zappa.
Yes,
And again, like I
that
mean,
is funky.
Frank Zappa was certainly before our time, but he discovered them, and he's not playing it. I'm like, who? It's just very bizarre, but it's cool. And even if you don't necessarily like it, it's just it sort of opens, as you said, kind of your mind to different things, and uh, just trying something new. It's
Yeah,
kind of like food. You're growing up, and you're eating hamburger and French fries, and then the first time you taste Chinese food, you're like, oh my god, like this food is like from you know 10,000 miles away,
yeah,
but it is absolutely delicious. So yeah, it's like it's just like people that are around you, trust them, and like they tell you stuff, and you listen to it. But there's also other ways, of course, to discover music, and nowadays, I mean, gosh, it's everywhere. Before, really, I guess the internet, it was the radio, uh, then the MTV, as we kind of talked before we started recording. That was a way for people to find out new music. Also, uh, kind of the first time that people like saw the bands that they like in person. It was they were recording videos, and I also always love like listen to a band and you kind of wonder like I wonder what they look like. I wonder what clothes they wear.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then now like MTV sort of brings that to you, and uh, they were playing a lot of I guess at this point you I guess call it mainstream music, but there was a way to you know uh, discover some new music. Then would they spun off and had a show kind of late, very late at night, kind of when I don't know when exactly it started. Maybe it was like the late '80s, but it was kind of their alternative music program. It's called 120 Minutes. And again, like I said, it was kind of late at night because at the time it was probably uh, music that people weren't familiar with. I just remember watching it. I don't know, probably in high school, and I think the host Matt Pinfield, he's his bald head,
Yes.
and he was introduced. I'm not going to get this exactly right, but it was something to the effect of, "You guys should check out this black metal band from Finland. They're called Scuffle." And like, all right, like why not? Uh, but nowadays, like it's advanced to where there's websites and of course now podcasts.
Hmm.
One website that I wanted to share that was very sort of informative and instructive to me is called Daytrotter, and it was started by uh, uh, Illinois native. I actually we intersected by I was wrote about high school sports, and he also wrote about high school sports as a freelancer, and we would intersect, and then next thing I know, he started this website called Daytrotter, which was in the Quad Cities, and he had a music studio, and the idea was to get bands like indie bands that are traveling either to Chicago for a concert or out of town from Chicago. It's off, I think, I-88. And it's a brilliant idea, like to have this band come in and they would record, I think, 3 songs, and the band would allow him to broadcast that music on the website. And so at the time, we still had offices. And so if I'm in the office, I would, put in my headphones and I would, listen like day tribe, like who came in yesterday. And as I told you earlier today when we were just talking on the phone, I mean, that's probably the place where I discovered the most new music I've ever heard. I mean, maybe even close to 100 bands I'd never heard of. I would just listen to it. Like, these guys are great. Yeah, I mean, I could just go through the list. I know one of your favorite bands, the Growlers, stopped by
Yeah,
and
they did a
recorded,
session there.
some songs there. And I made so this is back in the day where you still had CDs, and so I would buy like 50 blank CDs, and I'd take them to the office, and I would burn like that day trotter session. So
Oh yeah.
I looked in my basement. We moved, and stuff is in boxes. I couldn't find them, but I mean, I must have 50 blank CDs of like these day trotter sessions of
That's awesome.
songs. So that was, I mean, such an awesome thing to for me, and for other people too that I'm sure discovered it as well. Uh, that they were trying to introduce new music to people, and for the bands, it was a great way for the bands that probably didn't have a lot of publicity on whether MTV or mainstream radio to get their you know songs out there.
Yeah, definitely.
And hey, like, you like it? Here, this is where we're going to play next week, or here's our website. Here's where you can buy our music. There
Yeah.
was another one that was started in Chicago, similar, called Hear Ya, Hearya, and it was 3 guys, one of whom owned a recording studio, in kind of I don't know, the maybe North Fulton Market area. And similarly to Day Trotter, they would invite bands to come in and record songs, and they would post them on their website. What they did, they added the additional element of they had video of the bands playing the sessions, and again, just a great way to discover new music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Pitchfork, when that website started, again by a Chicago guy, Ryan Schreiber, uh, when they started the website, then they curated a music festival. It was called Intonation at the time. I forget, maybe it was like 2005 ish, which eventually became the Pitchfork Music Festival. But I went to that, and I mean, it was a way for one day. You're there 10 hours listening to maybe 20 bands,
Mm-hmm.
18 of which I never heard before. And
Yes, yes, exactly.
to see those kind of bands live was just awesome. Tell me some of the maybe websites or podcasts or some places that you've discovered some music.
Yeah. So one that's really popular right now, and for it has been for a while, is another Chicago one called Audio Tree, and they actually record these sessions in a nice studio. They sometimes interview the band in between. But my band China Rose, we actually recorded in that same little studio space that they record those in, and it's really nice. Our studio was technically Narwhal Studios, but it's like all in this little living room that has different entrances to different studios, so it's kind of cool. And we saw the Audio Tree posting posters on the walls and stuff. But they always have same kind of thing. They have people passing through, go there, have an interview, and then they say like they're playing at the Empty Bottle tonight, and then it's out in time. So it's usually a radio station too. So they broadcast it to the whole area, and they know, hey, let's go there tonight. So that's really cool. But yeah, all those little video like interview kind of collab things, those are really cool because you hear from the artist themselves little things, and sometimes they talk about bands that they like too. So um and then I'm trying to
Yeah,
think of
so
more websites.
I'm glad you I'm glad you said that about, not only are is Audio Tree playing, they're playing, a song live, Day Trotter doing that, but some of those like Tiny Desk, whatever, they take breaks and they talk to the band,
Mm-hmm.
a little, snippet about, hey, what, you know, what inspired this album, what music are you listening to? And then sometimes if you pay attention, then you can hear that band that you like or talk about another band,
Mm-hmm.
and then you might then go listen to that band. And that's something there is Amoeba Record Store, which is has several locations in California. Um, they have a YouTube channel called "What's in My Bag."
Mm-hmm.
Bands that are in LA, a lot of bands live there. They will go to Amoeba Records, and it might be a band it might be a band you've never heard of. One of my favorite one was a band from New Zealand, and not only did I just I love the Kiwi accent. I just like I
Yeah.
could listen to them talk about recipes, but they're talking about their music. So I listen to their music. They're talking about bands they like. I now like a
Mm-hmm.
couple of bands that they recommended. But it's cool about that is again you're kind of getting another outlet to discover music.
Yeah.
So not only do I love listening to my favorite bands, I also very much enjoy hearing you know them talk about other bands.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, the Amoeba What's in My Bag is one of my go-to YouTube channels that we often will share links with each other, like, oh, you got to check out the latest what's in my bag. I think I remember I can't remember the artist, but it was somebody that you knew. You sent it to me, and one of his favorite. or an album he picked out was by Guided by Voices, and
Yes.
it's one of my favorite bands. So it's artist. He's like those really young guys, like probably early 20s, but he's in Amoeba Records picking out a Guided by Voices record that was recorded 30 years before he was born.
Hmm.
And I love that stuff so much. You know, talking about just like kind of cool uh, kind of venues like the Audio Tree, uh, Detour, Amoeba, What's in My Bag. The takeaway sessions, which I really love that concept of just walking down the street with instruments, talking, playing a little song. You told me about one that I never heard of, Jam in the Van,
Jam in the Van. Yeah, I watched that a
and
lot. They always have up and coming bands that I like I've already heard about them, and then I see that they just released a Jam in the Van, but it's like a little, I guess you could call it an RV or a trailer, and they have all the instruments in there jammed. Literally, they're jammed in the van, and they're just all playing like a sometimes stripped down, sometimes they fit all their gear in there, and it sounds exactly like the album, but they're just in a small space, and it's funny to see and super intimate again. So and then same kind of thing, they'll have the artists maybe answer a couple questions or just introduce themselves, and you're just like, wow, look at these regular people in this. And what instrument is that they're playing in the background, like an electronic harp or something? So, and then there's a band I saw in there called Corners, and they were really cool. It almost sounded like the singer was like singing in like a British accent, but they're just from California, so it was kind of cool. But they have like really badass like surfy, kind of doomy sound. So I liked them a lot. Also, this artist, and we'll get into it later, like social media. We found this guy on social media, but he did a Jam in the Van, and my wife Abby really likes him. His name's Wes Parker, and we're gonna see him when he comes to town. So, yeah, it's just kind of like a intersecting loop of all these subjects and outlets. But yeah, that Jam in the Van, that's a new one that's going out still. They're still putting stuff out.
what I love about the concept of Jam in the Van, it we'll put up a link uh, so you can find it, is whether or not like they're playing a song, whether or not it sounds like the version on the album or not, it's how they're playing that song in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so it might be, so that's like a special, you know, take of that song. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And also you kind of you in some ways you get to know the band. Like, their kind of personality in a way. Like, hey, like clearly they're like probably some pretty fun people to hang out with. They're like
Mm-hmm.
crowded in this van, and maybe the guys, you know, uh, guitar is sticking in the drummer's
Yeah.
ear because it's too tight. But you just I love learning about bands I don't know, and I also love learning about bands that I love, like their kind of personalities, because as we talked about in the previous episode, is the those connections you make with the band, like why they're
Yeah.
that's like kind of why they're important to you. I mean, while you don't know them personally, this is sort of a way to they kind of invite you into their life for even a minute, and
Yeah.
it just gives you just like a more intimate connection with them. And I mean, I love that stuff. uh and when you mentioned Wes Parker that
Yeah.
you discovered, you and Abby discovered, about now you're going to go to a show. This is another way to discover bands, the bands that might play with Wes Parker,
Mm-hmm.
on the bill,
Yeah.
that you might not know, but Wes Parker, whoever, like, oh, this uh bill might fit together. The people that come here to listen to Wes Parker might also like this band.
Yeah.
And sometimes,
Exactly.
like, some of my favorite bands now are bands that open for the band I knew that I went to see.
Yes.
We've gone to see the OCs several times. I think John Dwyer does such a good job of introducing his fans to different bands.
Yeah.
The last two times I saw OCs at Talia Hall in Pilsen, Chicago. So 2024 was this band. I want to say Sweden, maybe it's Norway. Either way, they're Scandinavian. They're called Iguana Death Cult, and
Yeah. That's
they
cool.
were banging. I mean, they were so awesome, so much so that when they got done, I could recognize a couple of the guys like in the crowd,
Oh,
and I
cool.
went up to one of the guys. And I was like, "You guys are awesome!" Like I never knew. I mean, I have their I at the show. I bought their record. I got a bunch of stickers. I took a
Nice.
picture with that guy. And then last year at the that opened for OCs was this Japanese band Keenly. Never heard of them, but they're this just hardcore three-piece Japanese trio. I mean, these guys I think are like in their 60s,
Oh, wow.
and they again just blew the roof off of Talia Hall. Like I'd never heard of them before. And again, bought their album, other stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's just these are there's so many ways to find new music, and if that's something that you want to do. I mean, you just don't have to rely on. Again, I know I sound like I'm 100 years old. The FM, radio dial or MTV. I'm not even sure MTV shows music videos anymore. I think it's like
No.
Cribs and
Yeah.
you know, I'm 15 years old and I'm pregnant.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
there's just there's just so much like cool stuff out there, and now there's so many ways you know to get it. It's a matter of you got to kind of put some effort into like looking for it.
Yeah, just keep your
Uh,
eyes and ears
and
peeled.
I promise you, it's so worth it. I mean, there's some of my favorite bands are it's I mean I never would have discovered without just sort of kind of paying attention
Hmm.
to something at a concert or listening to friends or ways like that.
Yeah.
Um, Also, a way that you mentioned that I kind of didn't even think of is TV shows you like.
Hmm. Yep.
Uh, Tell me about the
For Yeah, so a couple times, I mean, this happens all the time for me where like recently I've been kind of on like a outlaw the past couple years, like outlaw gunslinger western type music that's not like cheesy country,
Urban
but it's like
Cowboy.
yeah, it's like cowboy stuff. So I was watching excuse me, True Detective with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, and there's like this. First of all, the theme song to that first season is amazing too. I've been listening to it. I'll have to pull it up here in a second. But there was a pivotal scene that was like towards the end. So it's like, this is like the climax scene in this song while Matthew McConaughey is just like walking slowly. It's Chris Christopherson and it's called Casey's Last Ride. And that shit was just it hit so hard in the scene, and I was like, I need to know what song this is, and now I play it like all the time when I just need that badass vibe feeling. And Christopherson, you look into his stuff, and it's endless too. It's really good stuff. Um, but yeah, let's see if I could pull up that theme song, what that's called. I just recently I locked it down, which is like you put it on your streaming device or iTunes or whatever you got. I'll like it on Spotify. And that's a habit you need to get into as well because you can bookmark these songs, go back to it later, instead of like, oh, I wish I could remember that song. I hate that feeling. So you
Right.
need to lock it down.
Well, as someone who is 50 years old, that is only going to get worse. So definitely
Yes.
write things down.
That's why I try to do that now. And now I have like all my like songs since I downloaded my app. I need to somehow get this to a different app because I heard Spotify is just not that great with their donations and stuff. So I
If
gotta
you want
catalog
to
it.
kind of know a little bit, if you want to know a little bit more about that, there's a really interesting podcast episode. I think The podcast is called Galaxy Brain. It's a Charlie Warzel. He's a writer for the Atlantic,
Okay.
and he interviews King Gizzard and Lizard
Yes.
Wizard, and they talk about, so King Gizzard pulled all their music off Spotify,
Mhm.
and so if you're interested about the kind of politics and dynamics of that, like really give that episode a listen. It's like it's very interesting.
That's
Also with
actually the band
talking
that
about
made me realize that about Spotify too. But also another first band I mentioned to people too to kind of gauge where they're at musically. Like, have you heard of King Gizzard? You know?
well, sometimes I mean, the way how prolific they are with releasing music, sometimes you feel like if you haven't listened to them, I mean, there was one year they put out what 5 albums.
Yeah, or seven, I
Um,
think.
yeah, they're kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but another way when you brought up the TV show, there have been shows I've watched, and yeah, you hear the song kind of overlaid a scene, and you're like, wow, that sounds really cool. And then you get on your tiny computer and you Google like what song is playing and this TV show, this episode. And you're like, oh my god, that's so great.
Hmm.
Also, a way that when again, it's kind of more of an old school way that I don't know that really exists anymore. But when the Dave Letterman show, the late night TV show, they would always have a band, play at the end of the show. And when the Tonight Show was like, I guess the more popular show, they would play kind of more the mainstream music that people have heard of, the very big acts. But whoever like I think Letterman is a music fan, but whoever was doing his music booking would sometimes they would bring out a band that you probably have not heard of, but they really like, and so I mean, it gives them such a big platform,
Hmm.
in front of this huge audience. And Conan O'Brien, when he had his show, very similar. He's a huge music fan, like big Beatles guy, and he plays guitars. In fact, like when he left his late night show, he had, I think, he went on a tour where he would do these shows where he not only would do some comedy and sketches, but he would play songs. Like he would bring the band out and he would play guitar.
Hmm.
So he had a bunch of really cool bands that I'd never heard of play on his show. Um, but other like sticking kind of with that medium, you were talking about music documentaries. Like now with all the streaming channels, you can find these great music documentaries. Maybe talk about one that you know really struck you and
Yeah, so there I'll link the documentary. I think it on YouTube it was just called like History of Country Music or something like that. And starts with like Appalachian yodelers and stuff, and that was really cool to learn about. But one that specifically stuck out was like sibling singers and musicians. So they talked about like the Stanley brothers, and they have like a haunting um, duet style. And then they talked about the Louvin brothers, and some would argue they're a little more like corny country in a way. I don't know, like people hear it and they're like, "What the heck are you listening to?" Because it's like really quick and it's mandolin stuff, but their harmonies mesh so well, and they grew up like singing in church, and they just kind of knew how the harmonies would go just from reading them all the time in church. So they were really good at writing them, and their songs are really funny. And one that we were laughing about was "Satan Lied to Me," and that album cover in itself is super goofy looking because they're like in these great white country suits and they're singing, and then behind them is like the devil with flames and stuff, like they're in hell singing together. And they actually made the prop of the devil out of wood, and it was life size. Like it was so funny, and we'll have a picture obviously of that right now. But they're really their songs are really kind of spooky. They one thing I like about music is that you can kind of time travel through it. You listen to it and you're like, wow, I feel like I'm there listening to these guys. And yeah, there's we just kind of we could probably have a whole episode on the Louvin brothers. Like one of them Ira, he got shot 7 times by his girlfriend at the time and survived. And like they're crazy. But yeah, Satan lied to me. That's the song I heard. One guy's singing Satan lied to me, Satan lied to me. The other guy's saying Satan lied to me, and it just like goes together so well. And yeah, it's just the time travel aspect and also like historical relevance of them, and that singing just sounds so cool and it's different. So that's and then we've since shared records with each other. We both bought one and traded them. And I think you got me The Family Who Prays by them, and that's a
Yeah.
really good one.
And again, that so we'll wrap this up, but again, like the Lugan brothers are from an era of probably my grandparents and maybe your great grandparents. So if they're not sharing that with you, the only way you can kind of find out about them is by you know kind of searching, looking at these, like watching this documentary. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a great way to not only discover music that is being made right now, but also music that was made 75 years ago
Mm-hmm.
that you can now find out about. So yeah, it was hope we sort of help kind of build a little roadmap for y'all to kind of discover some new music. I think that it I do think it'd be, if you're a music fan, I really do think it's worth your time to check out some of the places that we talked about. Find some like cool stuff, and again, for listening, this is kind of a passion project of ours. Like when we first met, uh, gosh, probably 4 years ago now or so. We sort of immediately, connected because of music, and we really enjoy spreading the word. And if you are enjoying this, please like and subscribe uh, to this to our YouTube channel. We have uh, an Instagram account, which uh, you'll find a link. Please follow us there, and we look forward to sharing more stuff with you in the future. So here, I mean, I've heard enough about where to get music from myself and Rambo. Here is one of our friends who shares our love for music, and he's gonna tell y'all where he gets his music.
Dan the Man.
When I think about all the different ways I find new music, a couple come to mind right away. One of them is KEXP, a wonderful radio station out of Seattle. If you are a podcast subscriber, they do have a wonderful podcast that releases a bunch of their live in studio performances. I try to listen to all the ones that they release. They release a couple a week. And, sometimes it's not my cup of tea. Sometimes I find a new artist that I want to go see in person. So I think they're a great curator of multiple different genres of music. It really, really covers the gamut. World music, hip hop, all over the map. So I've definitely found a lot of great things there. I try to listen to as many Tiny Desk concerts as I can. I think lately they've gone more to some old school artists, but they do, in some ways break a lot of new artists too. So I will use that as a good place to find some new things that I may not be familiar with, or maybe I've heard of but haven't really dove into yet. I know that anytime I'm out and about at a restaurant, bar, just out in public, I keep my phone handy, and I use Shazam a lot when I hear something that I say, hey, that sounds interesting. That's something I would like to check out. I definitely save it for later and then give it a re-listen back at home. Hearing things out in the wild is often, if something catches your ear, that's a great thing. There's a bunch of music journalists that I subscribe to on social media, primarily taking a look at their end of the year best album lists. I'm still someone who I try to listen to an album every day, whether it's something old or something new. So that is something where, some things may have, gone under the radar or just kind of missed me entirely, where I've definitely discovered some great new artists through that methodology. And it's led to me going to see them live in many cases. There's a lot of, if I find myself scrolling on social media, inevitably in the reels I'll come across, kind of crate diggers or, people who, will show off their vinyl as examples of things to check out. That's something that I've added into my listening to albums rotation, and it's, kind of expanded my horizons quite a bit. Spotify definitely has its pros and cons. Pros being I can literally fire up anything that I want to check out or have heard through the grapevine might be good. Cons, obviously their compensation structure is not what it should be for artists. And I'd rather not have an algorithm tell me what to listen to next. But at the end of the day, word of mouth is my favorite way, where it's a friend telling me, hey, you need to check this out. You'll like it because X, Y, and Z. Your buddies know your musical taste better than anybody else. So, getting recommendations from them tends to be my favorite way.